So I'm gonna be down here for a second so you can see me, so I don't have to move the camera. We went ahead and we already did the cream puffs and eclairs. They're baked off, ready to go. And now we're gonna show you how to do cream horns, baked meringues, and fill and garnish some of these cream puffs and eclairs, okay? Right here, I'm gonna show you how to do first a baked meringue. Why are they so important in this chapter? Well, a couple different desserts in our industry don't use cake as a structure. Think of a gâteau with cake, cream. We have a lot of tarts and desserts that are made with bases of meringue, actually a circle, a round or square, solid, fully baked piece of meringue, and that's what is the structure for some of these tarts and gâteaux. In your Pastry Basics chapter, you should be looking at that while you're watching the video. You're gonna see some of the short doughs, some of the pâte brisée, pâte sablé. These are the tart doughs. Now, they are different, yet similar to our pie crusts. And tarts essentially are similar to pies. Differences though, the crust is usually a higher fat and sugar content, making it more palatable, more flavorful. Usually tarts have a thicker crust too, a larger, thicker crust, a crust to fruit filling ratio than say a pie. So that's why we want to make sure that that dough, that short dough, the crust of the tarts and these pastries are sweeter, richer, more palatable than say the plain-ish pie doughs, okay? That's gonna be the difference there. Otherwise, you're gonna be using a meringue as a base for these tarts and pastries, okay? Once again, being similar to those pie doughs, the short doughs and the pâte brisée, the pâte sablé, the makeup is relatively simple. It's the same, using the biscuit method, breaking up that cold butter into your dry ingredients and adding small amounts of liquid till it comes together to form a dough. Small amounts of kneading, really not trying to make a whole lot of gluten, but enough so that this dough does stay together so that you can roll it out and form a tart, okay? For that reason, I don't really show the whole process of those short doughs, just like I didn't show the pie doughs. A lot of my students, in my classes, they get bored because they've done biscuits already. They don't want to see that. They want to see what they can do with these products. So we're going to get you in a little bit more to see what we can make with pâte sablé, pâte brisée, the short doughs. One take, right? Woo! One take, okay? The other side of this Pastry Basics is our puff pastry, right? Puff pastry, we know, is just like croissants. It's another laminated dough. So we know we're gonna be making up a dough. We're gonna be making up a sheet of butter for rolling in, and then we have to do the folding and rolling process, right? Fold once, chill after we locked in the butter, then we're folding again, chilling, folding again, and then we, after all the turns and folds have been done, can roll it out very thinly. That essentially could be a base for a lot of these tarts too. If you didn't want to use the short doughs, theoretically you could use a puff pastry. However, puff pastry has a lot of other uses. They can be turned into simple papillons, small, essentially sugar-coated puff pastries that are eaten a lot like cookies, and they're baked crispy and hard, a lot like a cookie, served in smaller portions. A couple other things, we've done Napoleon, so you know a few different things you can do with puff pastries, but what I'm gonna show you here today, instead of do a simple cream horn, something that a lot of students like to see, okay? Right now, let's do the baked meringue real quick, and then we'll jump over to the cream horns. So, I went ahead and made a simple Swiss meringue. Not common, not Italian. You could use essentially any kind of meringue that you want, but for this one, I went with a real quick Swiss meringue. Because we're trying to make a bigger, larger baked meringue to hold, say, a large tart or cake, we're going for a bigger shape. You just dictate what size or what shape that you want, right? So I decided a simple circle right here. I marked it with permanent marker on the parchment paper first. Anytime you do this, flip the paper back over, right? Really simple. And then for these, we're gonna use a smaller piping tip, start in the center, and we're gonna spiral our way out, okay? Now, why do we use a piping tip rather than just sit here and spread meringue around a circle? The piping tip helps keep evenness, right? We don't want a lopsided disc of meringue. Just like when you're decorating a cake, you have to make sure your cakes are nice and level. Same thing with your baked meringue. So when we use a piping bag, it helps us keep the same thickness and consistency around the entire disc. And that's what we're going for. So once we have it like that, now we are going to bake it. Whenever you do a baked meringue, you're typically doing it at a lower temperature, 200, 225. And I always try to get students to think back to macaroons. Macaroons are baked meringues, right? Essentially, it's a almond meringue piped into small circles and baked off. So what's the temperature we use for macaroons? It's typically 325, right? Well, that's a pretty low temperature, but it's also a pretty small shape. So, just like anything else, whenever we do a bigger product, we need to lower that temperature so that it will fully cook all the way through without browning too much on the top. A perfect balance, right? So we'll put this in the oven and we'll see how it goes. Let's jump over to cream horns real quick. So, like I told you, puff pastry. Puff pastry can be used to make a lot of different products. So this one we're gonna make are the cream horns real quick. Now if you open your book and you're looking at the page for the cream horns, you're gonna see, not a recipe, it tells you to go and refer back to puff pastry, right? Because it's puff pastry, so you make the puff pastry. Really what it's trying to show you is a procedure for how to put together a simple cream horn. I will tell you a quick troubleshooting. I personally like to use a French pin, something with tapered edges so that it makes it a little bit easier to slip that cream horn off. This once again is a convenience product, pre-made puff pastry. For some reason you can see it was kind of old and it got a little crusty along the edges here, so I'm just trimming that up. We need it to be nice and clean dough so that it will roll evenly around our pin, okay? The next part of the procedure is telling you to roll out your puff pastry to about yay thick and cutting it into strips. The size of the strips dictates the size of the cream puff. So if you want a really thick and wide, make it a little bit longer cream puff, you can go for wider strips. If you want a cute little cream horn, I apologize, a little cream horn, you are going to cut thinner strips. For today, we're gonna cut them about, like the book says, about an inch and a quarter. You wanna try to keep your strips as evenly as possible. If you need to use an accordion cutter, that's not a bad idea for this quick demonstration. I'm just gonna do it really quickly. Boom, and have those ready to go. Now the next thing in the book, it says to use water on the outward edges. As you're rolling it, the water covered edge stays on the outside, essentially helping it stick and hold its shape. Well, in my opinion, I'm thinking it's outward, right? So I'm using egg wash. I'm gonna help it stick, yes, but also aid in the appearance. It's gonna make it look prettier. So I take a quick thin egg wash and just brush all those strips relatively quickly, nothing too crazy. Boom. Once I got my strips ready to go, then we can go ahead and start assembling our cream horns. And let's go ahead and get in it. Go ahead and get one strip off here. We're gonna start on the thinner end, tapered end. Don't start from the center of the rolling pin. We're gonna start from the thinner end. You're gonna seal up that strip's end a little bit onto the pin, not a whole lot. Just enough so that it doesn't move. And then we're gonna start rolling. As we roll our cream puff, oh my gosh, I gotta stop saying that. Cream horn. As we roll our cream horn, we wanna make sure that they overlap, right? They overlap. Just a little bit. You really don't need to seal them up or press the strips together with your finger. Just kind of let them loosely drape around, but make sure that they are overlapping just a little bit. That egg wash needs something to stick to. You can seal the last end up a little bit if you want. The idea is to try to get the ends on the same side of the rolling pin, so essentially you can set both the ends down so that they don't unravel as you bake. It's kind of the idea there. Let's go ahead and try to get one more on this rolling pin. Try to keep it on the same side that that one's already on. So we're gonna start there, and we're gonna roll it around. Once again, overlapping, overlapping, boom, boom. There we go. Seal it up just a little bit at the end there, and hopefully they're kind of sitting where you can lay it there. All the ends are tucked underneath so that they don't open up as it bakes. And just like anytime we do something pretty with egg wash using puff pastry, I like to use some sugar. The book says to use sprinkled sugar, but it's egg wash and it's the end final product on the outside, the side we're seeing, so why not turbinado, right? Make it look pretty. And I coat it pretty generously. Once they're coated, lay it so the ends are down, and then boom, we're gonna put it in the oven. That oven's off because I already made a couple. Boom. And these are the finished products. Now, a couple things to be wary when you're doing this. One, you want to take the cream horns off the pan while they're still hot or warm. Don't let them fully cool down. It's going to be harder for them to get slipped off. They start to cool down, they get even crumblier and crispier, they aren't holding their shape as well, and then you try to slide them off and they fall apart. So slide them off while they're still hot or warm. I bake them just a little bit further. The insides are touching the rolling pin, so they're gonna still be a little wet, a little bit doughy, so I slide them off, put them back in for maybe another 5 minutes, kind of toast and dry out the insides, and then you're ready to go. Just like anything else in the oven, the top is usually gonna brown first, so like this one, that was the bottom, and that was the bottom, so they were sitting like this, the top browned first. I rolled the pen just a little bit to try to brown this side. I did roll it over upside down to brown the bottom. You can do that. Slide it off when it's still warm, and then you will be ready to go, okay? A simple cream horn is usually filled with a pastry cream type filling. A lot of places though, as a standard, will make a lighter, fluffier pastry cream by adding in and folding in whipped cream or creme chantilly. A lot like we did the Napoleon, okay? So I went ahead and made us up a filling. Boom. And then we're gonna go ahead and fill these cream horns. Now, you don't have to use a French pen with tapered edges. You can use a regular rolling pin, but think about a cream horn. You kind of want something with a really large taper so that it starts small and gets thicker, essentially so that your cream horn does the same thing and it has somewhere to hold some of that cream. Obviously, this is a little bit of a bigger end, so we're just gonna fill it a lot like a cannoli and make sure that that cream stays inside. Boom. The one thing you wanna be weary about making this filling is it can't be too thin, right? If it's too thin, it'll just weep out of the cream horn and that won't look pretty. Boom. Look at that. Boom. Now we got two beautiful cream horns, right? We'll put that right there and we'll move along, okay? We did the baked meringues. We did cream horns. Real quick, I want to show you that choux lattice that we made before. Cooked fully, browned a little bit, cooled so that it becomes brittle enough. And then essentially what we can do is break it up into pieces. And we'll do like 3 here. You don't want them too big, obviously. Think about you're trying to run a nice fine dining restaurant. You've got a nice plated piece of cheesecake that you made from scratch with a delicious raspberry coulis that you made from scratch. You put a little bit of whipped cream on top. You lay a nice little piece of candied lemon zest on there. And then right next to that, up against your cheesecake, you put a big piece of lattice, choux lattice, up against your cheesecake to add height and definition and show a little bit more expertise in your craft so that you went ahead and made a garnish from scratch just for your cheesecake. It shows care and pride in your work. So a really simple, quick little garnish that you can do just with some of that leftover choux, pat of choux paste, whatever you want to call it. This is that round, weird kind of shape, but once again, I could still use that as a garnish up against a dessert. Kind of abstract and kind of cool, but either way, however you want to do it. I just want to make sure my video is still recording real quick. Beautiful. All right. Let's go ahead and knock out a couple cream puffs and eclairs. So, as you can see, mine are a little more on the rustic side. These are your eclairs, obviously, the longer, and you've got your cream puffs. Cream puffs. These are the larger cream puffs. Boom. You can see a little bit of a difference here, right? Whenever you're doing the larger ones, when you do that spiral, you will see it change the definition. So if you don't like that look necessarily, then try to do it like the minis. The smaller, normal size cream puffs, just think larger. Try to get a larger tip if you can, and keep it straight, same. Just make a really big, nice definition cream puff, okay? These are the eclairs, and you can see with Pastry, you kind of get what you get. You try to pipe them as cleanly as you can. The smaller, usually you do, the cleaner they come looking, okay? So you can see those right there are probably my best two eclairs, but I try to do a couple bigger ones. And just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, let's take this one. You can see the proper recipe done in the proper steps has enough humidity, enough rise with that higher temperature in the oven that it will create a pocket in your eclairs or cream puffs. That's for a reason. We need that pocket. That's what we're gonna fill with all that delicious pastry cream, okay? So now that you get an idea of what we're talking about, let's fill a few of these. I don't know if you've seen this back here, but this is actually my chocolate ganache. A really old kitchen trick. You got pilot lights on every single one of your burners. That's still a flame. It emits enough heat to keep things warm. I've had that chocolate ganache sitting back there for about 30 minutes now. It is perfect, ready to go. So that's a quick little trick for you. Okay, so my favorite handy dandy tool for whenever I'm doing eclairs or cream puffs is wooden spoon. This is really what I use a wooden spoon for more than anything. A thin wooden spoon though, and we're gonna use the handle and we're gonna use that to poke into the eclairs, okay? There's two ways that I've seen eclairs done. It's style, it's up to you, whichever one you wanna do. Personally, the one I do is straight through the eclair. Use it, your wooden spoon gently to push through and create two openings on each side so that I can fill cream through, right? The other way I've seen it done is you take your wooden spoon again and go to the bottom and you just poke two holes on the bottom. You gotta be gentle. Sometimes it does break that crust a little bit, but the idea is two small holes there in the bottom, and now you're ready to start filling, okay? So I'm gonna just real quick. Boop. This honestly shouldn't take anybody very long to garnish or fill an eclair. If you are paying somebody and they're taking 30 minutes to fill eclairs, you need to hire somebody else. All right, we're ready to go there. Now, cream puffs essentially are the same thing. They're gonna have that hollow center, right? So, a lot of times I will take my spoon and just boop right through the bottom of my cream puff. Don't go through the top. And now we can fill them through the bottom, okay? That's one way. We saw a couple videos with the cream puffs, so you kind of get an idea of that. I personally am trying to get to my new style where I'm doing the new bigger cream puffs. Rather than we're taking the small ones there and filling them, we're taking the big ones, cutting them in half, filling them, and re-sandwiching them together, okay? So that's what I'm gonna give a shot there with a couple of those. Pastry cream, and this is a standard pastry cream. I had the whipped filling, the whipped cream folded with the pastry cream to make a thinner pastry cream. For the cream horns, for eclairs and cream puffs, I typically do just a standard pastry cream. It's a little bit thicker, has a little more definition. It holds up better in these desserts in my opinion. And in eclairs or cream puffs, you're looking for something a little bit richer, a little bit thicker, like a pastry cream, whereas the cream horns, typically people are used to having a lighter, fluffier filling. So that's once again, trying to play to what people expect from these standardized desserts, and you should have a good understanding of what these standards are for each one of those desserts. Real quick, before I forget, can you see me? Third question for the assignment. Third question, find me a dessert in our book that uses a baked meringue disc for a base, as a base or structure, something that uses the baked meringue discs, whether it's a plain baked meringue, whether it's the coconut d'Equasse meringue, any one of those. Something that doesn't use cake as a structure or a base, but uses the meringue discs or meringue sheets, okay? Find me one dessert, let me know what that is. We're gonna keep moving on, okay? Very simple. Now that we've got our holes leading to our empty hollow insides, now we can use our piping bag to gently and quickly fill our eclairs and cream puffs. Now, you should use a piping tip, but you know me, I like to cheat and do things the wrong way. Essentially, if you cut the piping bag smaller than your hole, you really don't need a piping tip, but for beginners, it does make it a little bit easier. Fill them up. Like, the worst thing in the world is to eat a cream puff or eclair that has half the filling in it that should. Fill that bad boy up. And you'll start to see it'll rise back up, it'll get heavier, and it will pop out the sides there. That's how you'll know it's full, okay? Boom. I didn't put a hole on that side. Oh, there it is. Oh, these look amazing. And then you'll see this one right here that we put the holes in the bottom. Essentially, I'm just gonna take my piping bag and fill the cavities through those two holes. And now I've got a decent eclair either way, okay? Those are the eclairs. That's just the filling. Now we still need to put a topping or a garnish. Boom, okay. So cream puffs, we got the hole in the bottom. We're gonna fill that hole, right? Boom, you can start to see that cream puff just rose up, it elongated as the cream started to fill it, and it got really heavy. Sometimes a little cream will come out the top there. That's not a big deal. Just tells me I'm full, ready to go, and I can move on to the next one. This is the one that we split, right? So we're actually gonna take a generous amount of pastry cream, boom, so that it holds its definition. So it really stands up and looks like a really nice tall cream puff. I might try this one like that too. And we'll keep these off to the side. If you've ever been to Detweiler's, this is how they do their cream puffs at Detweiler's. They're really big, they're really tall, they're almost like a sandwich, whereas normally you'll see these cream puffs. Croque en bouche, you're using these cream puffs. Doing a croque en bouche with a sandwich large style cream puff is gonna be a pain. You don't wanna do that. Okay. I got my chocolate ganache. Remember I was talking about what people typically use to garnish cream puffs and eclairs. You can use chocolate icing fondant, plain icing fondant. You could essentially use a donut glaze. I prefer chocolate ganache, especially if you're running a bakery where you're already using chocolate ganache. I don't have to make something else. So boom, I already have some chocolate ganache ready to go. If I'm doing sandwiched large cream puffs like these though, I don't know if you guys can see those. Let me slide those over a little bit. Like these, I essentially would just do a quick powdered sugar topping. I really wouldn't go too crazy with those. You're trying to really present and display the cream puff pâte choux dough that you made from scratch. So more than anything, I don't want to cover that up too much. If I'm doing simple, quick little cream puffs and eclairs like this, that's where typically my style, remember this is my style. You do not have to do this exactly. I like to do chocolate ganache as a topping, okay? So boom. And I'm gonna grab one more glove, ready to eat food, right? And this is where you essentially just want to take those eclairs, dipped. Now, I also too am not a perfectionist. I really like the rustic, quick look. You want to sit there and get really pretty with it. Make your pâte choux, your eclairs look perfect as they're baking. Then dip very cleanly in the ganache, ever so. and you'll get a prettier eclair. But for me, I like a quick eclair, especially if I know it's freshly made. Oh. As you can see, how many did I just do? And I really didn't take that long. It took about maybe 5 minutes to fill and garnish half a tray of eclairs and cream puffs. Put a little chocolate topping on those bad boys. Cream puffs are meant to be simple and quick. They're not meant to be really labor intensive. So if you're noticing, for some reason you are a perfectionist and you want your cream puffs to look perfect, just try to make sure you're watching your labor costs. Keep them moving quickly. Cream puffs shouldn't take a whole lot of time. And for extra credit, I'm gonna add some of my standard white sprinkles. Make it even prettier. I could put a piece of gold leaf on top. I could put candied citrus. I could put a bunch of different things. Pieces of pre-made chocolate display pieces, like the curls that we made in there. I could do a really nice, elegant plated dessert version of an eclair. I don't know if you can see that. Eclair, possibly with a drizzled sauce on the plate. And maybe even my lattice crust up against it. You never know. Have fun with it, play with it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I'm gonna make sure that this recipe for our cream puffs is on the assignment so that you do have a copy of it, okay? Thumbs up, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys soon.